Lazy Girl and Diligent Girl were living in a small house in the town. That day, while the lazy girl was lying idle as usual, the diligent girl returned home with her new friend. "Let me introduce you to my new friend. Her name is Jenny." The moment Lazy Girl saw Jenny's beauty, she became very jealous of her. And then, when her sister asked her to make a cupcake for her new friend, the Lazy Girl got very angry. "Sure, she said, and went to the kitchen. But instead of cream, she poured toothpaste into one of the cupcakes she prepared. She placed all 3 cakes on the plate and returned to the living room. She handed Jenny the cake with toothpaste. Jenny took a bite and smiled with pleasure.
Yum! Delicious!
Lazy Girl was very surprised by this, and when her sister ate her cake with pleasure too, she thought, "I don't think that I have mixed it," and she threw the last cake into her mouth in one bite.
Yuck!
But that was the cake with toothpaste in it. Lazy Girl was about to scream in anger for mixing the cakes, but then her sister suddenly said, "Let's have a makeup party," and took Jenny to her room. Seeing them having fun, Lazy Girl ran to the kitchen and grabbed a handful of flour. While the girls were putting on makeup and singing, she mixed some of the flour into Jenny's powder. Just as Jenny was about to powder her face with the flour, Lazy Girl tripped and fell to the ground with a thump. The flour in her hands was smeared all over her face. The girls laughed non-stop at this fall, which they thought was a joke. Lazy Girl didn't know what to do. She was now even more jealous of Jenny, whom she could not take revenge on. Suddenly, she turned around and said,
"Oh, look, Jenny. You should stay with us tonight. We can have a pajama party."
And Jenny accepted this offer. In the evening, Lazy Girl secretly placed a jar of fleas on Jenny's bed. Unaware of everything, Jenny lay down on the bed prepared by Lazy Girl. Soon, she was covered in fleas.
Oh, what is this? Fleas!
Lazy Girl and her sister immediately ran to Jenny. Jenny said,
"I think I have fleas. I better get out of here,"
and left the house.
You did it! You're literally jealous of my friend!
This is very bad what you did. While the diligent girl went after her new friend, the lazy girl was left at home all alone. She couldn't get a drop of sleep all night. She sat in fear and waited for her sister until the morning. The absence of her sister made her so sad that she realized that her jealousy caused that loneliness. So the next morning, she apologized to both of them and never became jealous again. And that's how their forever friendship with Jenny began.
Once upon a time, there lived a brother and sister named Hansel and Gretel. Their mother had passed away when they were babies. They lived with their dad in a hut in the forest. Their dad was trying to earn their living by working as a woodcutter and was looking after the kids at the same time. A couple of years passed, and struggling to juggle work and 2 kids at the same time, their dad decided to get married again. The woodcutter's wife was from a wealthy family, and she hated the fact that they were poor and she had to live in a small ruined hut deep into the forest. Plus, she did not like her stepchildren at all. On a cold winter night, as they were getting ready for bed, Hansel and Gretel heard their stepmother talking to their dad. How are you going to get through this winter? We don't have enough food. If you do not get rid of these kids, we will all starve to death." Their dad opposed furiously. "No need to argue. I made up my mind. Tomorrow we'll take them to the woods and leave them there." Hearing all that, Gretel started to cry. Her brother Hansel comforted her.
Please don't worry, Gretel. Somehow we'll find our way back home.
Later that night, Hansel snuck out and collected as many pebbles as he could in his pockets. In the morning, they all started to walk towards the forest. Their father told them that they were going for a family hike. As they were walking, without anyone noticing, Hansel dropped the pebbles to mark the way back. In the afternoon, their dad and stepmother lit a fire and told them that they will be back soon. They walked off and vanished in the woods. Of course, they did not come back. When the night fell, the horrible sounds of all the wild animals in the forest started to echo around them. Shivering with the horrifying sounds of the wolves, Hansel and Gretel did not leave the fireside until the moonrise. Then they started to follow the pebbles shining in the moonlight and walk towards home.
Well done, Hansel. This was very clever of you.
When the kids came back home, their dad was very happy and surprised at the same time. Their stepmother also acted as if she was happy, but deep inside, her decision was still the same. She was very upset that they were back. After 3 days, the stepmother tried to get rid of them again. This time at night, she locked Hansel and Gretel's door and did not allow Hansel to collect pebbles again. But Hansel was a clever boy. When they were walking to the forest in the morning, this time he dropped the breadcrumbs that he had put in his pocket the night before and again made a trail the way back home. Around noon, their father and stepmother made up an excuse and went off, leaving them all alone in the forest again. Realizing that they were not coming back, Hansel and Gretel wanted to start walking back home before it got dark. But this time, they could not find the trail they left because all the breadcrumbs were eaten by the birds. Gretel started crying. For the first time, Hansel also felt hopeless. This time the kids were really lost. With no food and scared to death, they wandered around the forest for 3 days. On the 3rd day, they saw a bird, white as snow. The bird chirped songs with its beautiful voice for them. They forgot their hunger for a moment and started to follow the bird. The bird brought them in front of a funny-looking house. This house had walls of bread, a roof made out of cake, and windows of candy, and was covered with colourful cream all around. Hansel and Gretel could not believe their eyes. The house looked incredibly delicious. The kids forgot all about how tired they were and started to run to the house. Just as they were both going to have a bite from the house, they heard a voice from inside. "Oh! Now who is nibbling on my house?" They looked around and they saw a cute and sweet old lady at the door. When they told her all about what had happened to them, she felt very bad for them, and so she let them in. The inside of the house was very different from the outside. It was dark, scary, and it didn't feel right. But because they were so tired and hungry, the kids did not care much. The old lady brought all kinds of food and desserts for them, and the kids ate food that they hadn't had before. That night, they slept on the softest bed they had ever seen. When they woke up in the morning, the old lady wasn't there. They started to look around. At the end of the corridor, they saw a small door. When they opened the door, they found cases full of gold and treasure inside. They were very surprised, of course. Hansel wanted to get in and take a closer look. Right at that moment, they heard her voice again.
And what do you think you are doing?
When they turned around, the kids faced the witch standing right there in front of them. Apparently, the old lady was a witch leading the kids to a dungeon with a house covered with cake and candy. The kids tried to run away, but the door was locked. The witch pulled Hansel by the hair and locked him in a cage. Then she dragged Gretel to the kitchen.
Your brother is too skinny. Cook some food for him and make him fat. When he's in good shape, he'll be a delicious meal for me. But don't you dare eat anything. All the food is only for him.
Having no choice, Gretel did what she asked for. Fortunately, Hansel was a clever and wise boy. He decided to trick the evil-hearted witch. Every night when the witch was asleep, he was digging a hole in the ground of the cage. The witch was controlling Hansel every morning to see if he gained weight or not. But Hansel wasn't eating anything his sister cooked. Instead, he was burying them in the hole that he digged. In the meantime, the witch was telling Gretel to cook more. This went on for days until finally the witch had enough.
Fat skinny? I don't care anymore. Today I will make Hansel pie.
She turned to Gretel.
Look in the oven to see if the dough is baked enough.
Although she was in fear, Gretel was also a wise girl just like her brother. She understood that the witch was going to push her in the oven.
I can't get my head in there and see the dough,
whined Gretel. The witch pushed her aside and stuck her head inside. Gretel gathered all her strength and pushed the old witch into the oven and closed the oven door. Gretel knew where the witch was hiding the keys. She ran straight away and saved Hansel from the cage. The flames from the oven covered the whole house. Hansel and Gretel ran away from the burning house into the woods, but they did not know where to go. A while later, they came across a river. A giant swan took them one by one to the other side of the river. The kids looked around and suddenly they realized where they were. They ran home as fast as they could. Seeing his kids, Father was full of joy. With tears of joy, he explained to them how their stepmother had gone back to her parents' house soon after they had left them in the forest. And how sorry he was for all that he did, and no matter how hard he had searched for them, they were nowhere to be found. The kids loved their father very much, so they forgave him. But another surprise was waiting for their father. They both reached their pockets and brought out gold and diamonds they had found in the witch's home. Their father could not believe his eyes. All the problems that their family had ever had went away, and they lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived two best friends. Their names were Kay and Gerda. During the cold winter nights, Kay and Gerda's biggest fun was the fairy tale time with Gerda's grandmother. "Where does the snow and the cold come from?" asked Gerda.
From far away.
Her grandmother answered and started to tell her story.
There was a kingdom covered with ice and snow. The Snow Queen lived alone in the ice castle, made purely by her own magic. The Snow Queen was very beautiful and pure as ice.
But the Snow Queen was evil-hearted, and a lot of miracles were hidden in the magical and cold ice castle. The icy mirror was one of them. It was through the icy mirror that the Snow Queen's evil eyes watched everything that happened in the world. Right at that moment, Gerda saw the Snow Queen watching them behind the window. "Kay! Grandmother! Look! It is the Snow Queen watching us through the window!"
I'm sure it is just a cat frozen from the cold.
"Grandmother, can the Snow Queen really come here?"
Let her try. I would throw her in the chimney so fast she would melt and turn into the Water Queen.
Watching through the ice mirror, the Snow Queen heard what Kay said.
"So you will throw me into the chimney and turn me into the Water Queen? Ha! Ice sparkles! Fly with my powers, find this boy. Make his eyes and heart mine. Let his sight be evil for everything around him, and let the love in his heart be gone forever,"
Ordered the Snow Queen to her ice sparkles. Suddenly, a snowstorm started to blow in front of Gerda's house. The ice sparkles were moving fast towards Gerda. Curious about what was going on, Kay opened the window. Gerda screamed right away, "Kay, stop!" But it was too late.
Oh, my eye! Something stung my eye! Oh, my heart! What is going on?
And at that moment, the Snow Queen's curse was carried out by the ice sparkles. His eyes and heart were struck, and Kay had transformed into another person. Gerda asked him what had happened, but Kay yelled at her.
Nothing! I'm fine! Leave me alone!
This was weird. Kay was never rude to Gerda like this. She just couldn't understand why all of a sudden he started to behave this way. Kay's rude behavior continued to the next morning. When Kay was taking his sleigh out of the garden, Gerda asked him where he was going. He snapped at her again. He jumped on his sleigh and moved away. Gerda ran after him, but could not reach him. Suddenly, on her sleigh, the Snow Queen appeared from nowhere, and Kay started to follow her. Gerda was stunned and couldn't do anything as they both disappeared from sight. The Snow Queen was taking him to her ice castle. Gerda spent days in front of her window, waiting for Kay to come back. Days and months passed, and the winter was over. But still, there was no sign of Kay. Couldn't stand waiting anymore. Gerda made up her mind, taking only the mirror her grandmother gave her. She head out to start looking for her dearest friend, Kay. Brave Gerda passed many roads and asked everyone she met on her way if they had seen Kay. Finally, she reached the shore of a river. She looked around and there was no one to be seen that she could ask about Kay. She asked the river but could not get a reply. At that moment, a seagull came next to her.
The river would definitely have an answer for you, but first you have to give her a gift.
Gerda took out her dearly beloved necklace and placed it on the water of the river. Suddenly, a miracle happened, and from nowhere, a small boat appeared right in front of her. Gerda thought that the river liked her gift and was returning the favor. As soon as she hopped on, the boat started to move on its own. At that moment, a crow started to fly over her head. It was as if he was trying to tell her something. So Gerda started to follow him. She followed the crow for a while until they reached the icy seas. Right in the middle of the ice, there was a pirate ship from some time ago, where the crow flew and landed. Gerda followed him on her boat and made her way to the ship. So, is this how I get to the Queen's castle? With this pirate ship? Pirates appeared on the deck, and one of them, a pirate girl, approached Gerda.
You go wherever we go, and that is nowhere! Ha ha ha!
Right at that moment, the Snow Queen was trying to make Kay forget about everything in his past. She succeeded up to some point, but whatever she did, Gerda would not leave Kay's memory.
Gerda! Oh, Gerda! Soon your heart will turn into ice and you will not remember a thing.
Finding out about her friend Kay being held captive in Snow Queen's castle, the pirate girl told Gerda to better forget about him, because there was no way to get him out of there. I won't forget. He's my best friend. I have to find him, replied Gerda. The pirate girl could not really understand Gerda's persistence. Actually, she wanted her to stay there and become her friend. But Gerda was determined to find Kay. I'll do whatever it takes to rescue him. Because she had no friends, the pirate girl really admired Gerda's attitude and decided to help her. The next day, at sunrise, the pirate girl brought Gerda a reindeer. This was the fastest reindeer in the whole Snow Kingdom, and she was going to show Gerda the way.
Promise me that you will get that icy witch. You will also save our ship.
I promise I'll return your favour, answered Gerda. Riding the reindeer, Gerda was on her way. First, she had to find out how she could defeat the Snow Queen. The reindeer was going to show her how. After a long journey, they had reached the North Pole. An old wise man welcomed them.
So, you finally brought the mirror, huh?
Gerda could not understand how the wise man knew about her mirror, but nevertheless, she knew she came to the right place. So she took out her mirror and showed it to the man. So I'm going to finish the Snow Queen with this?
This is a magic mirror. It shows the truth, nothing but the truth. Even if it is hidden deep inside.
Because nothing was stronger than true love, the real strength in all of us was love. Gerda found out who the Snow Queen was, thanks to the wise man. If she could reveal the truth, she could beat her. Because actually, in the past, the Snow Queen was a good girl, full of love. Wherever she touched, flowers blossomed and her smiling eyes shined brighter than the sun. She was a unique and happy girl named Lilla, but everyone thought she was a little witch and did not play with or even talk to her. Left all alone, Lilla wasn't a happy girl anymore. She started to hate everything and everyone around her. Until one day, she made a wish.
Everyone mean to me shall turn to ice.
And then she built a castle made out of snow and lived in it, far away from anyone, all alone and without love or joy. Gerda arrived at the Snow Queen's castle and entered inside. She saw Kay in one of the corners, making an ice sculpture.
You're here! I found you! Kay! It's me, Gerda! Don't you remember me?
Kay looked at Gerda, but he did not recognize her.
Ha! Ha! His heart, like everything else here, has turned into ice.
Gerda did not pay any attention to what the Snow Queen was saying.
Let him go! He belongs to me now. I will turn you into ice as well.
No, you won't make it! Kay! I love you! Kay slowly started to remember.
Gerda? Yes, I remember now.
Furious, the Snow Queen shook her wand as fast as light, and out came the curse of ice. Right at that moment, Gerda took out her mirror and held it against the curse. Hitting the mirror, the curse disappeared. And the moment had come. The Snow Queen looked at Gerda's mirror, only to see that it wasn't her reflection she saw on the mirror. It was the face of a little girl, the face of Lilla. Suddenly, the Snow Queen returned to her little and loving self and became Lilla again.
Thank you very much. Now I know who I really am. I'm free again.
Goodbye. Kay and Gerda looked at each other and smiled. From now on, they would never part and they would grow together. Just like the roses they had planted in their front yards. Once upon a time, there lived a married couple. Although they really wanted to have a baby, well, for them, it just wasn't possible. One day his wife went to the old witch and told her she wanted a baby. "Don't be sad, my dear girl. Where there's a will, there's a way. Take this seed and plant it in a pot and wait and see. You'll be surprised." His wife was very happy. She thanked her with joy. In return for her amazing favor, she gave the witch some money. Later on, she went straight home and planted the seed in a pot. With great patience, she began to wait near the pot. Soon later, a big tulip-like flower began to blossom. Right that moment, she thought to herself, "What a beautiful flower." With its leaves still unfolded, she reached over and kissed it. Short after, the leaves began to unfold. In the flower was a child sitting down. With great confusion, the lady picked up the tiny girl in her hand. "What a tiny little child you are! Your name should be Thumbelina." The lady made Thumbelina's crib out of a walnut shell, her mattress from violet leaves, and her blanket from rose petals. Thumbelina managed to adapt to her new life with ease. At night time, she would sleep in her bed that was made just for her, and during the day she would play on the table and sing songs. One night, while she was sleeping in her bed, an ugly frog appeared from the window. It saw the little girl sleeping in a walnut shell.
Rabbit, oh my, what a tiny and beautiful girl you are. You'd make a great friend to my son.
As fast as it could, the frog grabbed the walnut shell and went out the window. Right near the house was a swamp. The house in which the ugly frog and his son lived in was right here. The son of the ugly frog was just as ugly as his father. When he saw the tiny girl his father had brought him, he croaked at the top of his lungs.
Rabbit, rabbit. Stop croaking. You're going to wake the girl up. If she wakes up, she will run away in fear. Rabbit.
The father and son decided to make the little girl a place where she could stay. Father Frog had a great idea.
Let's place the little girl on one of the lilies over at the stream. Being surrounded with all that water, it will be impossible for her to get away.
Father Frog took Thumbelina with her crib and placed it on one of the lilies. In the morning, with the sparkling light of the sun, Thumbelina woke up. When she noticed she wasn't at home and saw that she was surrounded in water, in fear she began to cry.
Where am I?
Father and Son Frog went over to get Thumbelina.
Here's your new friend. I'm preparing a great new home for you. It will be in the very deep waters of the swamp.
Father and son took Thumbelina's crib, made from a walnut shell, and swam off, leaving her right there on the leaf. At that very moment, some red fish were swimming along, and they overheard what the ugly frog was saying. They couldn't stand the idea of an ugly swamp frog upsetting such a beautiful girl such as Thumbelina.
Don't you worry, little girl. We are going to save you.
All together, they chewed on the stem of the lily where she was sitting on, and they broke it. All alone now, the leaf got caught in a rip current and managed to get away. Making way on the current in her green leaf left all the birds with great admiration.
How beautiful and tiny she is.
As she was on her way, she passed a rather big maybug. He grabbed her as fast as he could and landed on a tree. Finding herself on a tree, Thumbelina was very frightened.
What type of a bug are you? And why did you bring me here?
I'm a maybug, and I have never seen a bug such as yourself before, so I wanted my friends to see you.
Later on, all the other maybugs sitting on the same tree came around to visit Thumbelina. Trying hard not to show it, all the maybugs were jealous of her amazing beauty.
You're a funny creature.
How rickety, doesn't even have wings.
How ugly. You can barely look at her face.
You are free to go wherever you want. We don't want such an ugly thing being near us.
Thumbelina spent the whole summer all by herself. She overcame her hunger and thirst by drinking the water of the flowers. A long time passed and the weather began to cool. Because of her summer clothes, she got cold. A field appeared from afar. The field was covered in straw. After a long walk, Thumbelina made it to the field. Under the straw, she managed to find a field rat's home. With a chance on finding some food, Thumbelina knocked on his door and asked for some barley. Kind-hearted field rat took her in. She got in that instant and ate up all the food the rat had offered. The field rat really liked Thumbelina.
If you tell me a story every day, I will allow you to stay with me to the end of winter.
With great satisfaction, Thumbelina accepted her offer.
Today my neighbour will come by. He's in better condition than me. If you go with him, you'll be very comfortable. But keep in mind, he has very bad eyesight. You will need to tell your best fairy tales and occupy him forever.
A little while later, with his velvet fur on his back, appeared a mole. Thumbelina wasn't very fond with the mole, but she didn't want to disappoint him, so she agreed to sing a song for him. Fly, fly, ladybug, wedding will be tomorrow. Mommy will buy you new shoes and clothes tomorrow. Even though he had poor eyesight, the mole realized he liked Thumbelina very much and decided to take her home.
I managed to come all this way by digging a hole and making a tunnel. If you like, we can go the same way and I can show you my house.
Thumbelina was hesitant to go. Seeing the rat agreeing, Thumbelina accepted his offer. They managed to make their way. During this time, they saw a swallow lying down on the ground with its wings on its side and its head and feet tucked under its feathers.
This bird wasn't here when I was coming. It must have just fallen through the hole.
Thumbelina thought about the birds in the forest and remembered them chirping above her. She couldn't handle the sight of them being in this state and was very sad. Without the field rat or the mole seeing, she turned to the swallow and gave it a kiss. This bird could be one of the birds that was chirping during summertime. If that's so, then I owe him a lot.
Come on, Thumbelina, we are waiting for you.
She couldn't sleep that night. She knitted a quilt with the straw, went to the corridor and covered the swallow. She wet the mint leaf she used as a blanket and placed it over its head.
Please be better soon, sweet little bird.
The following day, Thumbelina went over to see the swallow and saw that its eyes were open. I don't know how to thank you. You took such good care of me. Now I will recover in no time. Once I have totally recovered, I will be able to go next to my friends in warmer countries.
It's very cold outside. You should rest in your warm bed and recover at once.
After Thumbelina was done giving advice to the swallow, she brought some water with the help of a flower petal and helped her drink it. And later on listened to how she broke her wings, smashing into the bushes. The wounded swallow wasn't as fast as her friends. She was tired, and so she fell. At last, spring had sprung, and the sun began to warm the land once again. The swallow knew that it was time to say goodbye to Thumbelina. Would you like to come to the forest with me?
I would have liked to come with you, but my friend the field rat would be very sad. I can't leave her.
In that case, farewell, Thumbelina. Maybe someday we will meet again. With teary eyes, Thumbelina watched the swallow fly away. With summer ahead, Thumbelina's worries began to arise.
It is summer now. Now that the third mole would like to marry you, we should get some beautiful clothes together.
When winter is here, be ready to live with me underground in the soil, Thumbelina.
Before Thumbelina began her life underground where it was cold and dark, she went outside for the last time to see the sun. Just as she was about to enter, right above her head, she heard a bird. When she turned her head up to have a look, she saw her most loved swallow. Thumbelina told the swallow that she was being forced to marry the mole and that she had to live underground where there was no sunlight. Winter is nearly here. We are preparing to go to warmer countries. Please come with us. You've saved my life. I would like to pay you back. This time, Thumbelina accepted the swallow's offer. And off they went. Thumbelina and the swallow flew away over the forests, seas, and the mountains covered in snow. Later, the two friends arrived at warmer countries. These places were amazing. The sun was brighter and the sky was shimmering. This is my home. Please pick the best flower for yourself.
This is beautiful.
The swallow placed Thumbelina in a beautiful flower. Amongst all this beauty, Thumbelina was very happy. Sitting in her flower and looking at it in detail, she was mesmerized. In the flower sat a tiny man as shiny as glass. This man was the fairy of this flower. Every flower had its own fairy. He was as tall as a finger. He had shiny wings on his shoulders and a golden crown on his head. It was the first time the handsome fairy had seen a beautiful girl the same size as he was.
What's your name, beautiful girl?
My name is Thumbelina.
The fairy took his crown off his head and placed it on Thumbelina's head.
If you marry me, you will be the queen amongst all these flowers. You will live a very happy life.
After having lived such cruelty, being in such beautiful environment, Thumbelina was very happy to hear such a great proposal from the very handsome fairy. The fairy held Thumbelina's hand, and right at that moment, 2 wings appeared on Thumbelina's shoulders. Thumbelina was now the fairy queen. Together they lived a long and happy life.
The Goose Girl. Once upon a time, a queen and her daughter were living together in the most beautiful castle in the country. The princess had a fairy she loved very much. This fairy always protected her. One day, when the princess reached the age of marriage, she decided to set out to meet the prince of another country. The queen gave her daughter a box of jewels to take with her. If anyone realizes that you are a princess on the way, bad things can happen to you, my dear daughter. So you will be accompanied by my assistant rather than a soldier. The good fairy also had gifts for the princess. She gave her a talking horse named Falada.
Hey, I'm happy to hit the road, my princess.
There is one more thing I want to give you, my princess. The fairy gave the princess a handkerchief. This is a magical handkerchief for my princess. Keep it always with you and use it when you need it. The princess said goodbye and got on Falada, and her assistant was on a donkey. Hours later, the princess, walking along the forest road, was very tired and stopped to get some rest. Oh, I'm so thirsty. We have water with us. Could you please give me some? The assistant girl drank from the water.
Sorry, princess, but I was so thirsty too, so I drank it all. Find yourself another water. I'm not your servant.
The princess was surprised at the servant's lack of respect, but she didn't say anything. They continued on the road. After some time passed, the princess stopped. Royal assistant, could you please get me some water from the fountain, please?
Sorry, princess, but I'm not your maid. I told you. You can get off your horse and get your own water.
The princess and Falada made eye contact.
You know, I'm starting to have second thoughts about this assistant girl. You'd better be careful around her.
The princess got off her horse, and she got down and drank some water with her palm. The magic handkerchief in her pocket suddenly started talking.
Be careful, my princess. This assistant girl is dangerous.
But as the princess bowed down to drink, her magic handkerchief fell into the water. Oh no! Seeing the magic handkerchief flowing in the water, the assistant girl saw her opportunity.
You have no more power left. From now on, I am giving all the orders. You will do exactly what I say. Now, take off the princess clothes and give them to me. If you tell anyone the truth, I'll get you jailed. The assistant girl did not only wear the princess's clothes, she also got on her horse, Falada, and started to move forward. The real princess, on the other hand, got on the donkey and slowly followed. After a while, they both arrived at the prince's palace. When the prince welcomed them, he thought the assistant girl was a princess and invited her in. But he also noticed the servant girl, who was actually the real princess. Well, my prince, she's just a servant. She doesn't need to come inside the palace with us. It would be best if you gave her a job and remind her of her place as my servant.
So the prince did so and introduced her to a boy named Conrad, who was the keeper of the geese.
By helping Conrad, you can be a goose shepherd too.
My prince, I have one more request from you. Could you tie up this grumpy horse? Better yet, lock him in chains. He almost threw me off on the way here.
So the prince summoned an assistant and ordered him to chain the horse to a barn. The assistant girl was trying to make sure her deception stayed a secret and fooled the prince. The real princess was sad and wept that her horse Falada had been chained up. She immediately went to the barn to see him. Poor Falada was just standing there in chains. Oh, Falada, what have they done to you?
If your queen mother had heard what had happened, she would be very upset, my princess.
Sadly, the princess left her horse Falada and started herding geese in the meadow with Conrad. After a while, she sat down on a stone to rest and unfastened the gold hair clips that held her beautiful hair. When Conrad saw these shiny hair clips, he immediately approached the princess's hair and wanted to take them.
Golden hair clips? I want these golden hair clips.
Ah! Leave my hair alone!
Blow, crazy wind, blow fast and straight. Take Conrad's hat and take it away. At that moment, such a crazy wind blew that Conrad's hat flew off his head. After pursuing the hat flying up the mountains, Conrad finally caught his hat. The princess, who had retied her hair, hid her golden hair clips. After herding the geese together until sunset, Conrad and the princess finally returned to the palace. Conrad was immediately before the king.
I don't want to work with the stranger you've given me.
Why, Conrad?
She's crazy. She talks to her horse and is blowing off my hat and making fun of me. She doesn't work at all.
After these words, doubts fell into the mind of the king. The next day, the king followed the princess in secret. The princess first went to the barn and talked to her chained horse, Falada, again. Seeing the horse talking, the king could not believe his eyes. He then went to the meadow where Conrad and the princess were herding the geese, and he hid behind the bush. After a while, he noticed the golden hair clips in the princess's hair. Blow, crazy wind, blow right away. Take Conrad's hat and take it away. After these words of the princess, a very crazy wind started to blow, and the hat flew again. Conrad ran after his hat up to the mountains. Meanwhile, the princess hid her golden hair clips again in her hair. Seeing this, the king was very surprised and secretly returned to the palace immediately. In the evening, the king summoned the princess to his presence. He asked her about her talking horse, Falada, golden hair clips, and the wild wind. At that moment, the princess started to cry. I cannot tell you, Your Highness. If I did, I would go to jail.
Don't be afraid to tell the truth, young girl. Tell me.
The princess told the king everything, one by one, starting from the very beginning.
So, you are the real princess. Don't worry. No harm will come to you. Now go and get ready like a princess.
The king immediately summoned his son, the prince, and told him everything. That same evening, Without saying anything to the fake princess, the prince arranged a feast at the palace. The real princess was sitting on one side of the prince, and the fake one on the other. The beauty of the real princess was dazzling. But the fake princess did not recognize her.
Who is this girl? What is she doing at the feast? Where did she find those shiny jewelry? That beautiful dress!
Oh, palace nobles, I have a story for you. Listen to me now.
The king started telling what happened to the princess, as if it was someone else's story. In the end, he asked everyone how someone who deceives people with lying should be punished.
The heaviest punishment must be given to that liar, my king. Her feet must be chained, and she must be imprisoned forever.
Is that so? But it is you who are the liar in this story. You have given yourself your own punishment. Soldiers, take this liar out of my presence now.
The assistant girl thus suffered the punishment for ruining the princess's life by lying. The prince proposed to the real princess that night. Then the princess and the prince went to the barn and rescued the talking horse, Falada.
The truth finally came out, my princess. If your queen mother saw this moment, she would cry with happiness.
The princess and the prince have started a new life in which they are very happy now. And the princess's good-hearted fairy was always with them, protecting them from all evil forever.